You know, a market is on edge when a company reports a record-breaking quarter and the stock still gets completely taken to the woodshed. Welcome to Earnings Unscripted. It's July 28th, 2026, and today we're looking at KLA, ticker KLAC, and their fiscal fourth quarter. They make the massive inspection tools that keep the global chip supply running. And Miro, they beat expectations comfortably today. Revenue came in about $3.66 billion, up nicely year over year, and they posted a $1.04 share. Operating margins actually expanded sequentially. Basically, a fantastic quarter on paper. But the immediate reaction after hours was just brutal.
Yeah, it was. But you've got to look at the setup. KLA ran up something like 90% during the actual fiscal quarter. That's a massive, explosive rally. So heading into this print, the stock was priced for absolute perfection. When you trade with that kind of momentum, a standard beat just isn't good enough for Wall Street.
Which makes sense. It's that classic buy the rumor, sell the news dynamic.
Exactly. And obviously, we're just spitballing our own opinions on the tape here. None of this is actual financial advice, but they gapped down hard right after the bell, dropping almost 14%. And they just stayed pinned there through the whole conference call. They never mounted a meaningful reversal.
Right, which feels crazy because their underlying demand story looks virtually unstoppable right now. I mean, they're the ones building the control systems for high bandwidth memory. If you want advanced AI chips, you literally can't build them without KLA verifying the process.
Sure, but that creates a really funny paradox. They're selling the equipment that expands memory capacity, right? But currently they're getting squeezed by that very same memory shortage.
Wait, how does that work?
Well, their gross margins took a direct penalty this quarter because they have to procure new, really expensive DRAM chips just to run the image processors inside their own inspection systems. So the supplier...
So the enabler of AI is paying a premium just to turn their own machines on.
Exactly. It's an irony that actively hurts the balance sheet. I mean, management said it was a 100 basis point headwind.
Okay, the irony there is actually incredible, which they mostly offset with a better services mix anyway, but still. Actually, speaking of the math looking a little strange this quarter, I need you to explain why their reported share count just completely transformed overnight without anyone treating it as a major headline.
Right. So they executed a 10-for-1 forward stock split back in June.
Wait, a 10-for-1 split. So they took their existing share count and just sliced it into 10 smaller pieces per share.
Exactly. It brings the per share price down to something a retail investor can actually look at without wincing. But the fascinating part involves how it interacts with their capital returns. They bought back well over $500 million in stock this quarter alone.
Okay, wait, walk me through that again. If they bought back $500 million in stock, shouldn't the share count be dropping off a cliff?
It would be, but because the split suddenly injected over 1 billion new shares into the count, that massive repurchase looks like a total rounding error on the financial statements. Outstanding shares actually ticked down a mere fraction of a percent. The split perfectly disguises the sheer scale of the buyback unless you dig straight into the cash flow statement.
That's brilliant. Financial engineering at its finest. But ignoring the paper math, where's all this fresh cash actually coming from? We mentioned the margin hit from memory constraints, but clearly some other segment must be absolutely humming.
It's the advanced packaging business, and this marks probably the most interesting structural shift in the company. Back in 2019, they acquired a firm called Orbotech.
Right, I remember that name. Wasn't Orbotech mostly focused on printed circuit boards and display manufacturing?
It was, and for a long time it sat there performing fine, but didn't really drive the overarching narrative. Management just essentially waited for the market to catch up. And now that artificial intelligence requires things like hybrid bonding and high-density substrates, Orbotech's suddenly the crown jewel.
So the tech world finally evolved to need the tools KLA bought 5 years ago.
Exactly. Packaging isn't just slapping a plastic cover on a chip anymore. It's microscopic 3D integration. They need KLA's metrology just to ensure these massive AI graphics processors don't fail in assembly. Advanced packaging revenue grew roughly 70% year over year, pushing toward $1 billion.
70%. That's incredible foresight, honestly. Or incredible luck.
Probably a mix of both, and Rick Wallace, the CEO, made a point about this market dominance on the call. He said, and I quote, When we're 6 times our nearest rival, I think oftentimes they don't necessarily get a view of the whole landscape.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's quite the flex.
A little bit of swagger there. But if they're seeing the whole landscape, what are they preparing next? Because they must be completely swamped with orders.
Swamped is an understatement. Their total backlog sits around $12.5 billion right now.
Jeez.
And Bren Higgins pointed out the lead times across the company run roughly 12 months. But for the really critical products, customers face waits closer to 2 years.
A 2-year wait list.
Right, which sounds fantastic for revenue visibility, but it introduces a massive psychological risk into the system.
Because of panic buying, if I know KLA takes 2 years to deliver a tool, I'm absolutely ordering double what I need today just to hold my spot in line.
Spot on. Customers commit enormous amounts of capital right now for fab capacity they plan to use in 2027. It's classic double ordering behavior in a constrained market.
Which makes you wonder how much of that $12 billion backlog evaporates the second this AI capacity race finally takes a breath.
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, and the honest truth is that nobody actually knows. Even their management joked on the call that forecasting is basically an unsolved problem in this industry, but they're acting like the demand will hold because they're already signing supplier agreements stretching into 2029.
Locking in supply chains 3 years out is a massive bet. If demand softens, they're left holding a lot of optical components. But I guess management feels pretty confident right now. Did they give a firm read on the upcoming quarter?
Yeah, they did, and they seem very confident because they're targeting next quarter's total revenue right around $4 billion. That's a noticeable sequential step up. The CFO also expects momentum to accelerate through the back half of the calendar year.
Which makes that huge stock sell-off feel even more disconnected from reality. You have a business guiding higher, blowing up in advanced packaging like we talked about earlier, and signing deals into the next decade? It feels like the market's punishing them for broader cycle fears rather than their actual performance.
That's exactly it. The fundamentals are pristine, but investors are terrified of cyclical peaks. There's also this looming November deadline for the Commerce Department rules on China exports. People might be worried some of this current strength is just panic buying ahead of potential trade restrictions.
Right. Geopolitical risk always crashes the party. Well, they definitely gave us plenty to watch. We'll see if those lead times shrink or if the AI packaging boom just keeps steamrolling everything in its path. Until then, I think that covers the main moving parts for today. Thanks for the breakdown, Miro.
Always a pleasure. See you next time.
If this quick check-in helped you make sense of the semi-cycle today, feel free to add us to your regular rotation. And just so you know, unlike KLA's 2-year waiting list, this entire show, voices and script included, is a fully synthetic AI experiment designed to get from the earnings call to your feed on the exact same day. We're always tweaking things, so please drop your feedback or ticker requests over at earningsunscripted@datamadness.ca.
Catch you later.